Hello, everybody. My name is Brandy Bell, and I want to welcome you to 5 Magical Steps for Peaceful Days and Restful Nights. I am excited to be here presenting this with you. So let's go ahead and get started. And make sure I'm recording. Perfect. All right. Well, this is a presentation about the challenges of stress reduction. And I'm really honored to be here with you, and I'm just so grateful that you're here on the journey. So today I'm going to focus 100% on you, and in order for you to get the most out of all of this, I would love to encourage you to close your browsers, other windows, and other social media notifications and things like that. Get a notepad or the worksheet and a pen. And so we're going to dive deep, and I don't want you to miss a thing. So we're worth taking this time for to learn about our stress and how to show ourselves compassion in the midst of stress and everything that we're going through. And so in the email, I've provided a couple of details about how to get the worksheet out and what to do. So I'll just go over that briefly here though with you. So you only need to print the first 3 pages if you're going to print it. If you choose, like, you want to write longhand, but it is a fillable PDF, so you can type into it if you want to. And then the final page of that worksheet is actually the answer. So don't worry about having to write down everything as we go along or having to go back and look at this video later on, because you'll have those answers on the last page, and you can refer to them there. So I'll give you a moment to go ahead and get that all set up, and thank you so much. Okay. I am a certified life and health coach, and I've been in the world of helping others for the last 20 years. So I'm really excited to be here with you today. And a fun fact about me is that I'm in a few comedy podcasts that my husband produces. It's just a really great creative outlet for everyone involved. And my 2 mottos are that there's no judgment in curiosity. And then the other one is that change is not about perfection. It's about the underlying reasons that we want change. So just 2 things that I kind of keep as paradigms for the information that I'm going to share with you today. So I'm not a doctor, and while I'm going to be educating you on these really important things, please just keep in mind that I don't prevent, treat, or diagnose any conditions. So consulting your medical practitioner if you want to make any changes in your lifestyle or diet should be the first step that you do. So at the end of this talk, I do have a special offer for you, so I'd love it if you stayed with me until the end. And if you're wondering if you're in the right place today, you are definitely in the right place if you really want to dive deep into your health and find out if there are things preventing you from feeling balanced. And if you feel stressed a lot, then this is the right place for you. So if you really feel like you want to make changes and you're ready to make some changes and you want a starting point, then this is a really compassionate place to start. Also, if you're drinking caffeine a lot to get going all day, and if you feel like you shouldn't leave your desk to take any breaks, or you feel like you're eating healthy, but you don't often feel satisfied, or you feel bloated, then this is a good place for you if you're feeling confused about food. Here we go. The slide's a little funny. Okay. So I want to guide you to making those connections today, if that's you. And if you're feeling like you have a really good handle on stress already and you sleep really well and in your body, your body feels really good and you've researched like everything there is to know about stress, then you could gain a new perspective today or learn a couple of new different things just from the different angles that I'm coming at. Everyone is very different. So I just am here to help empower others on their journey. So I do dive deep into the content, and we're going to cover a lot of ground today. And I do feel like this topic is really only half addressed in our conversations, and we do need to hear more. So as we're going through, be open to connecting the dots, making some reflections on your habits as we dive into these top stress contributors. So you'll walk away from this with some places to focus, tapping into a bit of your own personal magic science to learn how complex and amazing we are inside. So today I'm going to share new information on stress challenges to guide you into developing skills to make a really broad impact on your life. So if you listen to the whole thing, take notes, and you think about your symptoms with an open mind and a new place to reflect from, then I know you're going to have some aha moments. So before we get moving, how often do you say the following? I want to have more energy, maybe, right? Or I want to eat out less. And maybe I want to banish that snack table to another parallel universe, right? That's how I felt before. And I really understand where you're coming from. So there used to be this coffee cart down by my office. And I think one week in May, one year, I had like 5 of these particular pastries, the Cohen Amman one that they actually cooked on the Great British Baking Show. They made those like little, they're so amazing. But yeah, I ate a lot of them. So now I'm really grateful to have other things to turn to instead of pastries. So I'm, yeah, very grateful from that. But I know where you're coming from when you find yourself back at that snack table kind of again and again, or at that restaurant down the street, even if you wanted to eat out less. So I also want to share a little bit about my journey today before we get started. So for my whole life, I always found it very hard to be inside of my body. I carried a lot of grief and pain, and I locked it in tight. And even when I found yoga in 2014, what year was that? 2011. That I found yoga. It wasn't really enough for me to build new habits at work and balance stress. So I really used that more as an escape. It was like, whoa, I have to focus so hard so you don't fall over from that particular pose and you don't lose your focus, right? I was really there just to be focused on yoga and nothing else. Anything to block out the outside world. And then a few years later in 2014, I got injured. I had a small abdominal tear, but it wasn't diagnosed for a really long time. And I had a hard time coping because I didn't know many of the things that I'm going to share with you today. So I felt bloated all of the time, and there was so much inflammation in my body, but I didn't really see it as inflammation. I just really felt it and saw it as pain. And by the time I was 38, I was lost on my healthcare journey. That undiagnosed injury had become chronic abdominal pain, and I could barely move upstairs. And then that feeling like when you hit a bump in the car, that was me all the time, and it just jars your body and that just hurts. So I knew I had to do something differently. And I got really, really serious about healing. And then I learned a lot of lessons about how my stress could be managed totally different than the way that I was managing it. And I realized that I was really fighting against the signals that my body was trying to show me. So, um, since then, I've made a lot of changes. And when I found health coaching in early 2018, I figured out what those inflammatory responses were. And I learned about what my ongoing desire to self medicate really meant. And so, although I say it's a lot of changes, really, it was small adjustments that I made that kind of built on top of each other that really created more joy in my life overall. And so after experimenting with all these things to see what worked and what didn't for my unique body, I felt so much more connected to myself. And I learned what my body really needed to thrive and to have balance, and what it needed much less of. So I worked hard, but I knew I could still make room to breathe and to have water and really to have that balance. So I had discovered that science and body chemistry play a really large part in emotional fluctuations, which I didn't know before. So I created new habits rooted in self-care and compassion. And it was then that I really understood my own personal health journey so much better. And I really believe that all of us have the right to understanding their own health journey and their own health story. So, in just under an hour, I want to share some of the science with you. So, hope you're ready to dive in. So I want to tell you how this training is going to be different than other ones about stress that you might have seen before. Sure, I talk about relaxing a little bit, but it really isn't about relaxing. It's more about identifying what your actual challenges are so that you can take specific actions to break through the challenge and show yourself compassion along the way. So go ahead, and if you don't already have some water, go ahead and pause the video and then get a little bit of water or something refreshing for your throat to drink, or just to have that hydration with you. And I'll be right here taking a sip while we wait. Okay, let's go ahead and explore these challenges together. So the first challenge that I want to share is going to be about our nervous system. It can't really tell where stress is coming from, and all stress is very dangerous. We could be running from a lion or trying to schedule a meeting for our boss that's just not coming together, right? And if we get upset about this, something clicks on to say that we need to protect ourselves. And that is called the sympathetic nervous system. It's the flight or fight response that we hear of so often. So I personally really like mnemonic devices, and I like to think of the word sympathy. And so the body is saying, like, I'm so sorry you're having this really difficult time right now. I'm going to protect you. And so I will get you ready to run and save yourself from this giant lion that's chasing you right now. And so as it's doing that, we can also see it as a really positive intention, right? So behind this, the sympathetic nervous system is bringing us awareness that something in our lives needs to be looked at. So this is this positive intention behind stress, and all of the side effects of stress is that it's bringing us awareness that we need to pay more attention to something in our lives. And it does this by speeding up the heart, getting the blood to the limbs and the brain, increasing blood pressure. Our breathing gets really fast, right? You notice when you're stressed, like you either breathe really fast or shallow. And then all of our stress hormones are also released at this time, like cortisol. So the system our digestion system shuts down at this point. And so all of this is known as chemical and biological stress inside of the body. We may not notice that it's really happening, but it happens every time we get stressed out. And it can be so low level that we don't 100% really notice it, especially if we're super busy at work. So every time it happens, there's some times like in traffic and meetings that aren't going well, when somebody calls in sick for work, or when work is just generally not staffed enough. Sometimes, anytime we have a strong emotional response, when we don't take breaks and we feel really pressured to get everything done. So all of these different stressors that come to us are perceived as lions by the body. So if we're in this state all of the time, then it can be tiring, and it can really make it hard to breathe and to digest our food. So I have a question for you, and you can note on the worksheet. Do you hold your breath when you're stressed, focused, or distracted? And if you find that that's true, then a strong, sensitive, sympathetic nervous system could be your personal contributing factor to stress. So what we want to do is we want to strengthen that parasympathetic system, and I'll teach you how to do that now. So go ahead and take a moment to reflect on how you feel when you're stressed, if you're holding your breath or not. And just thinking about how oxygen is one of the most underrated nutrients, and we need that to kind of stoke the fire of digestion. So how do we strengthen our parasympathetic system? You may even be thinking right now, like, I have way too much to do. I can't relax. So I'd like to consider a shift in our mindset change, right? So perhaps relaxing can also be about reducing the impact of stress on the body, and not just going on vacation or binge watching TV. So those two things can be relaxing, but really they only happen when we're not at work or when we're not taking care of life and other people. So this mindset shift, when we make it to think about, like, relaxing is also just about taking care of our body and slowing down our systems, versus relaxing has to be like not doing anything. This can have a really positive effect inside of our body, and it diminishes greatly the side effects from being under constant pressure inside of our body, working to protect us from that lion that the body perceives as chasing us, even though, there's not a real lion. So to slow down, I teach my clients to make space for things like walking or dancing to their favorite song, or being mindful of what's happening by engaging the senses. So I would like to know, what has worked for you in the past? And have you done anything like any of these things with consistency? So go ahead and just jot that down mentally or on your pet note somewhere. Did that help you? Or did you really feel like you needed somebody there with you to help you maintain accountability and stay on track? Did you use any types of tools to stay on tracks? So just jot some ideas down on your worksheet. Check in with how how you slow down. You check in with maybe how others slow down too. You might ask some of your friends if they have any techniques to slow down beyond what I've written here. Slowing down during mealtime is really important too. So, so go ahead and think about that for a moment. Okay, so There is a quote here that I want to take a moment and focus on, and it says, "Be softer with you. You are a breathing thing, a memory to someone, a home to a life." And that is by Naira Waleed. And she has a lot of beautiful little poems like this that you can follow her on Instagram if you'd like to. Anyway, a lot of very beautiful things like this to share. But I particularly felt like this one was really applicable to stress, and I wanted to share that with you. So I really want to talk about regulating our breathing patterns now. And regulating our breathing pattern during the day can guide the body into relaxation and help it go into parasympathetic mode, even if we have deadlines and unexpected things occur. So, I want you to walk away with this technique, and I'll tell you why it's critical. So, we have a nerve in our body that's called the vagus nerve, right? And the vagus nerve is something that's used to send the parasympathetic signals out to the body to tell it what to do under stress. And so that nerve is in control of that, but it's also the link between the brain and the stomach for digestion. So when we're stressed, it's actually going to totally cut off digestion and turn it off. And if when we're stressed, right? But the parasympathetic system, that kicks in and it tells us to go into parasympathetic mode and return our systems to normal. And then our blood can go back into normal circulation. Our digestion system can turn back on and we can digest our food again. So, if we're in stress, basically the sympathetic system is saying, "I'm sorry right now, I can't help you because I'm saving you from a lion." And this is really important because it means that we cannot digest our food if we're eating under any stress at all. And it just sits there in the body, making it really hard for us to feel good, making us not feel so great. And if we're always in that sympathetic response, we are prone to anxiety and other emotional triggers. And this allows our nervous system to relax that overdrive protection mode, and it really helps us from having burnout. So, the best thing we can do for ourselves is to take a moment and just breathe. So, I want to do that together today. So, just kind of taking a moment to adjust wherever you are and sitting up tall for just a moment. And I'll have you breathe in and hold the breath and then exhale it out so that your exhale is a little bit longer than your inhale. So go ahead and breathe in. And you can either sigh it out or you can breathe it in through your nose and out through your nose, whatever feels most natural for you. And when you're using this technique all throughout the day, during meetings or anything like that, you might change it up a little bit just to suit your environment and what feels perfect to you. So let's go ahead and take another breath. Okay, breathe in again, hold, and then a long exhale. Nice and steady, right? So, how was that for you? Just go ahead and take a moment to write in the space on your worksheet how that felt for you, and so that you can kind of reflect on that later and think about times that you would want to build that into your day whenever you need it. And then right before bedtime is also a really good time. So let's go into challenge number 2. And we're going to talk about the things that we turn to for stress and what they are, and what to do about it. Okay, great. So our body is really begging for a break. It's like it wants to sleep, sit near a tree or a plant, to read, meditate, walk, say very kind words to ourselves and to others, or maybe take a bath. And we often press the easy button for our stress. And what I mean by the easy button when I say that is it's relying on alcohol and food and other things to comfort us. So it's taking something to band-aid the pain that doesn't heal us but takes away the symptoms so that the underlying cause may sometimes be forgotten or it may be buried until it gets so out of balance that we face illness. And why is this so common for us? A big part of this is actually the chemistry that I was talking about when I talked about my story today. And it's called the blood sugar roller coaster. So products containing a lot of sugar usually don't contain a lot of fat, fiber, or protein. And fat, fiber, and protein slow down sugar absorption. So when those nutrients aren't present, your blood sugar is going to shoot up really fast, like to the top of a roller coaster. And when insulin then is sent out, because that's its job, is to balance us, right? It doesn't really just bring our blood sugar back down into balance. There's often too much insulin secreted because we're already in this pattern, right? And so what happens is our blood sugar dips way down, and then that's that sugar crash that you feel after the sugar high, that really shaky, spaced out, uncomfortable feeling, right? So what does our body crave at this point when we're down there in the middle of that funky sugar crash? It's more sugar. Yeah, you guessed it. so, so because of this, the sugar craving then is our body's way of saying that it needs something very specific to restore the balance. And when our body is producing insulin to bring you down from the sugar high, it can't produce what's called glucagon, which is the hormone that burns excess sugar and fat that the body stores. And that result is an emotional roller coaster ride. And this can make our mood super funky, and it adds another level of stress to our body. So what do we do when sometimes it's easier to reach for sugar than to deal with a problem or challenge in life? So we begin to seek balance all the time. And over time, we start to get used to the signs of the jitters and the highs and lows that are caused by that blood sugar roller coaster. And what happens is that whole process just kind of becomes low-level chronic stress, and it creates subconscious habits in our like meals and what we crave and things like that, craving. So the body is kind of making this balance, making the struggle to achieve this balance appear automatic. But really what has happened is it's just become this like low-level chronic stress that we're not really realizing that this is a type of stress that's happening inside of our body. So that constant need to balance puts a lot of stress on the body constantly, and it starts to manifest as various symptoms. So that's low energy, headaches, IBS, and often depression. And so what happens next when we feel all these different things? We go to the doctor for help. So I mentioned depression on the last slide, and then this part I'm really just going to read a lot of it because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So often depression develops as a side effect to this chemical stress. So we're trying to cope with feeling sick and going to the doctors. And well, doctors are expensive, and we're missing work and time with our friends and family, and feeling unhappy inside of our bodies because of pain and low energy and discomfort. And of course, it makes sense, right, to think of it this way, that we might get depressed. So we can add in the loss of our loved ones, the environment, history, etc., all of these different factors, and then we're more at a risk for severe depression. And the doctors are asking us all the questions that they should be. So that's great. They're telling us that it might be stress, and that's because it is stress, right? So, okay, now that we've identified it, the way that we normally think about addressing stress is just to remove the biggest stress factor, the biggest external thing that causes stress. And that could be a job, a relationship, or to think that we just need to go on vacation. We need a vacation. Well, of course we do, right? Vacations are wonderful. Exploration, travel, all of those things are so great. But often when we think of vacation, we also think of money as a factor. And then even when we go, when we come back and we're walking right back into our stress, or we work extra hard to make up the money, and so we're putting our body under more stress. Or sometimes when we let go of something that we really think is stressing us, but we don't change what's happening chemically inside of us, we're still under the same amount of stress inside our body. And so that's why thinking about all of this stuff and bringing awareness is kind of this other level of So yeah, other level of stress. And so I know how that is. I've just been there so many times with so many symptoms. And so what happens is we just have so many symptoms that we don't know what to do. And we don't really know which ones are the most important ones to bring to our doctor. So, or healthcare provider, whoever that we're seeing, right? And sometimes we make the assumption that our diets are pretty healthy, mostly unaware of a lot of the hidden sugars that are in so many of our foods and how those hidden sugars are perpetuating the cycle. And this all causes more stress. We don't know what's wrong, and the imbalance doesn't always show up on a simple glucose test. And all of this is why this is such a big challenge. So I want to empower all of us to be able to face this challenge. So I have some questions for us now. So do you often wake up at 3 a.m.? Do you feel like you skip breakfast, or you start with something that mainly contains sugar or refined carbohydrates? So you can think of some examples of that would be like a muffin, a bagel, like really sugary yogurt, white toast, or packaged cereals all contain a lot. Other examples are like orange juice, granola bars, where sugar is the first or second ingredient. And then we, of course, have our sugary lattes, right? That's a big one. So if you answered yes to any of these different things, then unbalanced blood sugar could be your biggest contributor to stress. So here are some symptoms, and I put them on your worksheet so you can either circle them or check them off if you're using the electronic PDF. These both are hypo and hyperglycemic combined together kind of in the same chart. So if you find that you are having experiences with any of these symptoms, you can bring them to the attention of your medical provider to discuss this a little bit more. And so just thinking about that and noting it there on your worksheet, whether or not this is something that you're relating to as one of your biggest challenges. So let's talk about how to help kind of go out of this and give some support around this for you. There are many things at play in the blood sugar roller coaster. And so when I work with clients, we focus on where the hidden sugars are and balancing fats, proteins, and carbs. I'm not going to really be diving into all of that today. Today, I just want to focus on a few small things that can really help bring awareness to your body and where you might need support. So, taking an inventory of how much sugar you eat during the week, tracking how much water you're drinking, and then developing a new post-meal ritual. So often we have that sweet tooth after dinner or after lunch, or sweet tooth just comes up. So whenever you're having that, there's a couple of different spices like cinnamon and things like that. Sweet fruits or vegetables. The pears are really good. Your stone fruits and your berries are both excellent for having a lower glycemic index and satisfying that sweet tooth, right? This little tooth that we have. So, and then maybe a non-food thing like either walking or doing some kind of craft or something like that can also be really helpful. So there's also a bonus in your worksheet answers at the end, which is to look closely at how you're feeling in the morning and kind of determining if you're hungry or nauseated by the thought of food. So go ahead and take a few moments now to think about which one of these things you like or you would want to do or you've done previously. So one way that I've helped clients is by kind of looking at what we're doing in the morning and getting you set up for success for the rest of the day. So it's not like a mandated breakfast or anything. It's just a way to check into the system and see what's working well and see where I can provide support to create that thriving, productive day. And I want to give you an extra tip and lesson about coffee. So I want you to think about the brain in the morning, and when you wake up, and when we give ourselves coffee, we might just think, oh yeah, the brain is just ready to go because it's had its coffee, but it's awake and it's still searching for complex carbs and protein because it needs those things in order to convert and stay balanced. Instead of just giving it sugar, because then that's what causes that blood sugar roller coaster. If we just have coffee, then it's going to release insulin because it says, oh, I need sugar. And then everything goes a little bit haywire at that point because it does need those additional things in order to provide that balance. So that's why you might feel that spiking of blood sugar for energy in the morning. It's just because your body needs that additional energy in order to keep going. So if we give it coffee and we give it something else like butter, for example, having like a butter coffee, then that's going to really help to achieve more of a balance and less of a something like that. What's happening inside, right? So everything is an experiment. And there's not necessarily a wrong or right answer. It's just an experiment. So the third challenge, we're going to get into that now, and I'll go ahead and have us all get some water. It's a little abstract, this one, at first, but I'd like you to just stick with me. So thinking about water, how it's such an amazing thing, right? Also is stress. And both of these things are powerful when it comes to our planet, including us. We have very many different contributing factors to stress. We talked a lot about biological and chemical stress inside of the body today, both in our flight and fight response and then also in our blood sugar. So we also have beliefs, behaviors, feelings, a whole bunch of different things. So let's talk about those a little bit. We talked about how we can develop low-level chronic stress, and here are some different things that low-level chronic stress provides to us. I guess we could say provides. Well, it's providing us with um, insight and awareness and like a positive intention, because it's bringing our attention to the fact that our body needs help. So when we have any of these different things happening in our body, then we know that there's some different things that we should be aware of and just start to check in. And some of those things are decreased nutrient absorption, increase in salt retention, increase in inflammation, and decrease in thyroid hormone. So if we continue in a stress response most of the time, then we develop that low-level chronic stress and symptoms, and they manifest in a lot of different areas of our life. So the 4 areas that we have stress are biological and chemical in the processes of the body, mental and emotional in feelings and beliefs and thoughts, and structural in our bones and our muscles, like that tear that I talked about that I had, and then spiritual in our sense of connection. And so all of these things are connected together. And I want to talk about why these 4 areas are so important. And I want to bring up 2 different concepts for you to just kind of dig into and feel. So thinking about living in a stress response all the time, whether that's low-level chronic stress or whether that's like stress that you know you're stressed. So that's living in a stress response. Your body's always stressed, and whether or not we're really realizing it or not, because it's biological and chemical and we're not really feeling it, and we're feeling it in different ways just with symptoms, or we're like stressed because things in our environment are creating this tension. So just, what that feels like. We've all had times in our lives, whether it's right now occurring or whether it's a different time where we know we're living in a stress response, right? And then think about what it is to live with a reduced stress baseline and how these things compared to each other would affect everything in our lives. So living with a reduced stress baseline, you might feel more relaxed more of the time, more healthy more of the time, and you know that your stress levels are probably pretty low during those periods of time. So we all ebb and flow, and the purpose of me talking about all of this is really just for education, for us to understand our health journey and our health story, and learn and grow from our awareness of ourselves. So thank you so far for sticking with me through all of this, and showing up for yourself today. This is so awesome. Thank you. So kind of moving on to thinking about, okay, we know how those 2 things look for ourselves, and it's different for everybody because everybody is different. These 4 areas are going to be very different from person to person. So thinking about how stress in one area impacts another, like water, that example of the riptide I had a few slides ago, it makes its way into all areas of our life. So you can also think of an ice dam on a building in a house. So the ice dam gets into the side of your house in the winter, and it cracks through the siding, and then it thaws. And when it thaws, the water goes into more parts of your house. And then it freezes again at night, and it expands. And then the next day when it thaws and the sun comes out, it goes a little bit further. And then that just keeps happening and happening. And that's what stress does to us too. It kind of leaks into all areas of our life. And so when stress is often present physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, it also manifests in our relationships, money, careers, connections, and our health. So if we only address one area, it doesn't prevent our bodies from stopping the stress response from kicking in from another source. So everything leads to each other: mental, emotional, spiritual, and structural. So I have question time for you again. So do you feel like the first two challenges have impacted other areas? Or perhaps an emotional or mental stress from a life circumstance is a factor for the first two challenges that we already talked about today. And if that's something that you're resonating with, then your biggest challenge could be challenge number 3. And experiencing stress from more than one area is very common. So go ahead and take a moment to note that on your sheet. So when we approach ourselves with curiosity, we begin to figure things out. And one way to understand where our stress is coming from and to help us better communicate with our healthcare providers is in the act of keeping records. Just writing it down helps increase our awareness of it. So it's hard for us to solve something when we're stressed out. So we get really overwhelmed with information, right? It comes from us from every different angle. And so when we start from inside of us and from a calm place, this can play double duty for us. It can give us a break, which is great. We need a break, right? And this is even a productive break, which is awesome. So it gives us a productive break. And then it's also kicking in our parasympathetic system, and it's creating awareness. It's helping us to come to a place where we're creating more awareness. So it's triple duty, actually, in this case. And then it's also allowing us to tap into our intuition and then our personal awareness that is our own unique experience, instead of chasing symptoms down the rabbit hole that is the internet and then diagnosing ourselves with super scary things. That just gives us a lot more stress, right, when we start to do that. So years ago, I got grounded. I think, it was about 9 years ago. I had a therapist that totally grounded me from going online and researching any kind of ailments or illnesses, or anytime I had something come up, she's like, "You're not allowed to do that." And it was a really good, it was the best grounding I've ever had. It's kind of funny, but it's true, right? So I really value that she did that for me. It was good. So I wanted to talk about how when we're doing that and we're diving in and taking that break, we're tapping into our own intuition. So we are the ultimate authority on our body and our health over any other book or any other source, right? So tapping into that intuition empowers us to be better advocates for ourselves whenever we do end up having to go to the doctor. So we listen when our body speaks. What do we do at that point? So with compassion and curiosity, we can identify what our unique stressors are and what they feel like. So thinking about all 4 stressors and what those 4 things feel like in our lives, we can identify those by doing different things like journaling, keeping a log, or setting a timer on our phone to remind us to check in with ourselves through the day. So those are all ways to increase awareness, which is to help us with coping with those 4 different areas of stress and making sure that we're not just addressing one of them, because then we're thinking of kind of the whole picture. We're making sure that ice dam doesn't just keep going through the siding, right? So let's go ahead and take a review today. Have a little water. So a recap of our 3 biggest challenges that often get us in an endless cycle of stress are that the first one, our body cannot tell the difference between what is real stress and our normal daily stressors that are kind of sometimes no big deal, like to our brains, right? But for the body, it's like real danger because it's any stress that's totally signaling that response to happen, that fight or fight response. The second one is when we have imbalanced blood sugar, the body keeps trying to balance it for us, and that creates food addictions and a lot of symptoms. And the third one is that we may be feeling stress from more than one area and then only addressing part of that stress. So the 5 magical steps are about developing awareness of our own unique lives and taking small actions. So let's go ahead and go over those now. So what do I need right now to decrease stress? Is stress present in more than one area? Am I being kind to myself, right? What am I saying to myself? Do I want to try something new? And what's working and how do I stick with it? So asking these questions to yourself at least once a week is going to heighten self-awareness around stress and enable us to take small actions around these things. So we've got to experiment to figure out what works. And one of the pioneers of holistic medicine, who's a functional doctor in Tucson, Arizona at U of A, and who's written tons of books. That's Dr. Andrew Weil. And these books help us to navigate and understand the baselines of health and see healing in a new way. And a lot of what he's written has really helped me understand what's going on inside of my body. So definitely talks about experimenting to see what works. And so how can you create a new baseline? Well, implementing the tools that you learned today is definitely going to help. Experiment, though, with no more than one thing a week. And then that doesn't really mean like we kind of have like 2 different groups of things to experiment with or try and that kind of thing. So you can try like thinking about the things that help you slow down and doing all those things that help you slow down, like taking a bath, taking a break. All of those different things are kind of like one thing, right? So you can kind of clump those together into one thing. And then we kind of have other things where we're doing direct change to our lives, like we're increasing our protein, we're increasing our water, those types of different things. So the reason that we really wanted just choose one thing a week is to help us keep out of overwhelm and then to set up accountability for just one thing. And the other thing, so that's one thing, one reason why. And then the other reason why we want to just do one thing a new week is because we want to see what's actually working, right? Because if we're experimenting with tons of different things, then that can be overwhelming. And then we also might not know what worked for us the best. And so making change can be time consuming and all of these different things. So we kind of want to make it easy on ourselves, but also at the same time, we're showing ourselves compassion by taking a step back and saying, hey, I just want to learn a little bit about myself and go a little bit at a time. And that's what I feel has really helped me and help my clients, is that we're taking one step at a time with action steps and seeing what really works. Sometimes it's a culmination of a whole bunch of different things, and as we're adding on, those things are going to make us feel better as a whole, for sure. So continuing those action steps together. But sometimes, like if you are going to change something specifically in your diet or make a really big change, you might want to just do experimenting with one thing a week. So that can help us determine what feels best. And reducing stress has a very significant impact on our ability to bounce back from illness and to heal from the inside out. And um, those two things together help us improve sleep, brighten our moods, and put lightness into our step. So go ahead and write on your worksheet, what do you want to implement this week to take more steps towards a reduced baseline of stress? Baseline of reduced stress. So you saw my mother-in-law Marla's Facebook post about her experience with butter coffee earlier today. And as my client, she wanted to implement some changes in her energy. We focused on daily routines and always on her unique goals in order to uncover what could really help her the most. And we did discover that slowing down in her eating made a really big positive impact on her stomach. So that was an experiment there. And then my client, Erin, wanted to implement some changes in her energy and feel like she had more time to do the things that she really loved, like skating and sewing. And so as a coach, my approach is to talk about how she was feeling and how she wanted to be feeling, and then look at days and routines. And I provided support and accountability for action steps during our sessions together. And then as a result, she slept better and had more balanced blood sugar throughout the day, which helped to sustain energy levels. So I wanted to bring a little bit of Rumi to us today. And the poem is, a story is like water that you heat for your bath. It takes messages between the fire and your skin. It lets them meet and it cleans you. So I love this poem because it is very elemental and really talks about, being in the body and how a bath can really invigorate us and kind of change us and clean us, right? So I love poetry and journaling, and it really doesn't matter if what I'm writing is like good stuff, right? It's just a way to process. So narrative medicine, or the act of writing a health story, has always been a part of my process. And I've experienced a lot more depression during times that I wasn't actively writing, that I've been out of sync with this. So I just wanted to mention that and provide these nature photographs for you along the way today to bring some joy into this time together. So nature, like writing and poetry, are things that have helped me on my journey. And so one thing that I really wanted to implement recently is a routine that was journaling routine that had mindfulness elements regarding nature. So I was looking at, where can I write down just like a few words here and there that's called like the signs of life. And I'm just kind of making sure I'm journaling and really being in the present. And so I decided that when I'm doing my tea in the morning, instead of looking at my phone while I'm preparing tea, that would be the time while I'm heating up the tea kettle and waiting for that water to boil, that I can just write a few different lines down about what's happening in the environment during that time. So it freed up a little bit of time, and then it holds a lot of joy for me. So it's just making a little bit more time to slow down and bring down stress by increasing joy. And fulfilling our desires goes a very long way in decreasing stress. So how can time become an ally for you as you're thinking about different things you want to implement? Sometimes just making a tiny bit of room for something can open up new options, and things open up that we didn't have time for before. So I wanted to thank you so much. Wow. for joining me today and saying yes to learning about unique stress challenges that we're facing today in our very busy worlds. So, if you have something that you would like to unearth personally, that I invite you to a free one-on-one session with me. And so, you know how I said that I believe that everyone has the right to understanding their own health journey and their story on a deeper level? It's something that I can help you create and become closer to in this hour that we spend together. And some other things that you will experience during this time is just what it's like to have coaching and accountability and just a partner through that process, or someone that's there for you. In that hour, you'll journey through your top desires and feel very empowered in your health, and unearth the key to intuitive building skill that you can apply during your life. And everyone's intuitive building skill is going to be different. Then you can also find out how to clear a pathway for your healing journey that you have. So during that time, I really dig deep and I ask a lot of questions because I want to understand where you are on your journey and provide support for you around where you might be feeling stuck and where you want to break out and have more flow and ease and that balance that we've been talking about today. What places do you want to hone in on? And we can talk about that together in this conversation. So while I'm asking you a lot of questions, by joining me on this exploration session, you'll discover how it's possible to bridge that gap between where you are now and where you want to be in your stress. And so I would love for you to be one of the amazing humans that gets a spot on my calendar. So over the next, every week I have 8 spots. So this is like kind of invitation to you to fill up one of those spots that I have on my calendar, that I have 8 every week. And so they fill up, and I would love for you to get one of those spots. So please go ahead and jump onto the schedule and get one of those spots. And I just want you to give yourself a really big, nice hug today and like, yay, thank you, self, for just, climbing into bed, into your pajamas, on the train, on the bus, wherever you are, just to tune in today and connect with your stress symptoms and discover some things about our body chemistry, that kind of stuff. So if you have any questions at all, I can answer them in our one-on-one call together. You can also email me and respond to the email that you got this link in. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope today that you gained a new perspective about stress and your health and your own health story and what that is for you to reflect on, and that you'll find more doors opening as you create your own reduced stress baseline. So my doors are also open for you should questions come up. Thank you so much. Namaste.